My name is Srikanta Panigrahi. I am an Adobe certified AEM architect. Today we are going to see about how to create an AEM project and what type of project or what kind of different structure we can create using AEM project archetype and when to create which type of structure. This is majorly dependent to the UI.frontend. That is one of the module that can be optional and SPA in nature. Related to that we'll discuss today. So this is the URL you can always follow. I'll put that as part of the description. You can search for AEM project setup and you will get this URL. This is, make sure you are landing at the Adobe's documentation URL. This is experienceleague.adobe.com, so that you will have authorized or legitimate documentation and up-to-date documentation, not something outdated documentation. There are a lot of blogs you can always follow, but make sure they are up to date, because Adobe is updating the documentation time to time, and even they are updating a lot of syntaxes related stuff, and even coding standard as well. They are updating time to time. Based on that, you have to um, make sure you are using the updated documentation. So in the project setup, there is a prerequisite step where you have to complete the local development environment setup. If I open the local development environment setup, you have to have all this information. You will need an AEM author instance. You will need Java 11. You can have Java 8 or Java 11. Post Java 11, any of the version is not supported as of now, as per my understanding. So I would suggest always go with this particular guide. As per this particular documentation, you install only these version. Apache Maven, you can use any of the latest, and rest of the thing you can follow as per this documentation. Once this prerequisite is done, then we will go directly to the creation process. You can refer to this video also to get more understanding about the how to create an AEM project, and they have already provided some detailed about the project archetype details. However, our video will be little different comparing to this video, because I'm going to speak about different type of project we can create and which scenario what you might have to create. Okay, now if I go to the creation project, as you see, MBN version has to be there. You can test by typing mbn hyphen hyphen version to check whether Apache Maven is installed or not. If you have installed, you are not able to see, you must have been missing the environment path setup variable. You can do a Google search or check any of the online videos related to this, where how to set up the environment path for Maven or Java. For Windows, you have to do a environment path setup by going to environment variable section. But for Mac, you can use something called Brew. There is some tool called Brew where you can directly install using Brew itself. So yeah, so according to your operating system, you have to follow this step. Now I'll go directly to the code. So in the third step, we do have the whole Maven command that actually used to generate the AEM project folder structure. I'll copy this command, and if you see, as part of this command, we are using the archetype version 39. Okay, the latest archetype is 43. I'm not using 43. You can use 43 also. I'm just copying from here, so I'm not using as of now 43. So let me open, yeah, this is an empty folder I created earlier to this uh, video also, just to test it. So let me delete my folder. Okay, I deleted empty. Okay, I will paste. It doesn't take the multi-line command setup, so I have to make it into single line, but I'll still show you what is the issue. If I will paste, it will come like line by line, so it doesn't take. So we have to make it single line. I'll put it here in the VS Code. You can use the VS Code feature to do it. Shift Alt up arrow, where you can select multi-line, backspace, backspace. So it is now in multiple single line. Control A, Control C. Now we'll put here. Okay, I'll put in here and press enter. Hmm. Let's see. Okay. If you see, the build is failure. The reason that we have opened the command prompt with the standard access. So we need the command prompt to be open with admin privilege. Okay. Admin privilege. So let me close this. Okay. And how to open with admin privilege? I'll just delete our, it is already created a folder because it was halfway through, but the build is failure. So I'll delete it. Okay. Now search for cmd. You will get that command prompt. Right click, run as admin. For the first attempt, you will require this. Currently, I'm at system 32. I have to go to this location. See cd, and I will put this. Press enter, and I'm here. Okay. Now we will put our command, whatever we have prepared. Control C, Control V. Okay. Let's see. This time it should be success. It's per my understanding. Let's see. Hmm. Yeah, build is success. Now let's see whether our folder structure is there. Okay. Yes, folder structure is there. Let's open this in VS Code. Don't save. Huh. Okay. Now, if you see, this is the folder structure, and as part of this folder structure, you see all core dispatcher. So this is the latest folder structure. Even in the latest folder structure, you will get almost similar folder names only. So there is only one key part we will focus today, that is UI.frontend. Okay. Now I won't give much deeper details about this whole multi-module Maven project. This is actually a multi-module Maven project where this all folder you see, that is actually each module of a Maven, and at the top level there is the parent POM which contains internally all the module. Okay, this is called multi-module. So when we run mbn clean install, I'll go to terminal. See, it should open here. We can run mbn clean install. Okay, I'll just put install. I do not have the AEM SDK run yet, so I'll just do a clean install, and most likely it should be success. Okay. Meanwhile, we'll go ahead and check the command that we just ran. Okay. Okay. If I come here, this is actually the Maven command we ran. If you see, there are a lot of information we are passing here, and some of the information are customized, which is, when I'm speaking customized, in the sense it has to be specific to your project, and some of the information has to be predefined values. Like if you see, AEM version can be either cloud or one of the standalone version name. Okay. And how do you provide those names? All these information are already provided in the AEM project archetype GitHub, and this is the URL, AEM project archetype GitHub. When you land in this URL, make sure you are in the Adobe's repository under that AEM project archetype. This is actually the repository created by Adobe team, and this is the archetype which is being used by the Maven command that we just ran, right? This is being used, the same archetype is being used by the Maven to generate a project, AEM project. And in this particular AEM project, usually Adobe team keep updating this archetype as well, and the latest archetype you can see is 43. And the same command whatever we ran here, this is the same command they have provided here. However, remember, if you see, there is some difference. There are almost like 1 2 3 4 5 6 details has been provided here, but here there are more than that. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, almost 10 details are provided. And the difference is, here only basic information has been provided. So when you copy this command and run in your command prompt, you might not be able to successfully created the Maven project. But if you are not, I would suggest you run this command where lot of other details are required, like these information also need to be provided. That's why it might not be successful. It depends on the variable is being used in the AEM, something this structure is being used, sometimes it does not supported by the system. That's where it is getting failed. So I would suggest try this command. If it is not success, try this command. Okay, okay, the commands are same, it's just we are passing additional values as per the project requirement. Okay, I'll tell these additional values. So these additional values are also provided here. So what is the value should be and what are the default value of those additional parameter that we are sending. So there is only two values I'm going to focus and I'll be discussing today. So one is AEM version, second is front end model. So AEM version can be, if you see, as part of our command prompt. Let me go here. Yeah, we have provided AEM version as cloud. Okay, now if you see, AEM version is cloud, and here it is written cloud because the default value should be cloud. If it is not cloud, what you can mention? So it has to be, if you are running or if you are creating a project for AEM as a cloud service, the AEM version value should be cloud. If it is Adobe managed service or on-premise system with a AEM standalone server, then the value should be 6.5.5. Okay, you can provide anything following with 6.5, but it is, you can, I would suggest always take the fixed value that is provided as part of the documentation. Okay, AEM version. Now, if you are providing AEM version, SDK version also required, but default is always provided latest, or you can provide one of these version that is mentioned here. Now, the second part I wanted to discuss. Along with that, these information you can provide. These are typical Java related. If you are creating any of the Java uh, project type with the Maven command, we need to provide these details. So I'm not going to discuss much about it. So you have to provide this group ID, artifact ID, package version according to your project name. So if my project is something like example.com, so where I have to provide something like com.example.project, AEM project, something sort of that. So based on that, you can take a call. It depends on your architect. They can decide these naming convention, but at least these four information you have to provide specific to your project. Okay, AEM version you have to ask your either to your architect, lead, or if you have Adobe managed services, you can get the information which kind of environment you are going to use or you are going to deploy this project. Based on that, you can ask whether it is a cloud or standalone. Based on that, you can provide this value. Once these are fine, and yeah, I forgot about mentioning about this. So these are the same information, kind of group ID and artifact ID, but you can give something different name as well, where if you see here, the name is AEM Guides Weekend in the artifact ID, but app ID is double KND. So you can give different name, you can give same name as well. There is no different. It's kind of a title and a label. Okay, it's a label for your project, kind of that. So you can provide this as well. Then this is the AEM project archetype that is being used. This one, this URL, if you see, this is the repo AEM project archetype, which is the Maven archetype. This is the version. Currently we have used 39, the latest is 43. You can just change the number and you can run it. We need, so this AEM project archetype need to have a group ID. That's where these, remember, these four line has to be predefined, and the values has to be fixed. Okay, at least these three are fixed. You can change the version, whichever version of archetype you require, and these are project specific and this is environment specific. Okay, remember about it. Based on that, while creating the project, keep it in your mind. Okay, and there are other information you can pass on. I would suggest you go through the documentation and go through each of these variable to understand the details about it, and you can use them also. If you need a separate video, we can discuss all of these options as well in a different video. I don't want to go into all the details. The video will be much longer. Now, the second part I wanted to discuss about the front-end model. If you see, there is nothing called front-end model we have sent, or we have passed into the Maven archetype generate command. Okay, the reason, if we don't pass anything, the default value will be general. Okay, if you see here, the This is the command property name, available property. This is the available property section. This is property name. This is the default value. So our property name is front-end model. The default value will be general if you don't pass anything. However, if you want to pass, it can be general or none, or it can be Angular, React, decoupled. Okay. So what is difference between general, none, Angular, React, decoupled? Remember, Angular and React, these are SPA based framework. SPA in the sense single page application. Okay, single page application based framework, Angular and React, and most of the code will be written in the UI part, Angular framework part or React framework part. And when I'm speaking Angular React, either it can be Angular or it can be React, it cannot be both. Okay, so other than Angular, if you have any other framework structure, that also can be created with AEM project. That's where they have mentioned decoupled, where there are what I remember, one more framework, something called Vue.js, that also you can use. I'm not going to specifically explain about this today, but I'll give only basic details related to these. Are SPA based. If you want to create your project with single page application nature, you can use the front end module value as Angular or React or decoupled if you want. The reason when you will go to this particular step, the reason is today's era, we are using, most of our websites are getting created with these kind of framework, SPA based framework, because of some advantages comes with it. Like it will work like a application of your mobile, and it won't give you a server side rendering experience, and your app, your website will work like an app rather than a website. It will work like an app, so there won't be anything laggy, or once the website is loaded, it'll work almost like an application experience. Okay, that's why client, it depends on the client and the experience for the project they wanted to have. Okay, so I want, yeah, and there is one thing you can one more part you can decide to go for Angular or React. If your team is majorly having React resource or Angular resource, also you can think of creating an AEM project with front-end model Angular or React. If you have resources with Angular expertise or React expertise, it is strongly suggested to go for this architecture. When you use Angular or React, it will implement something called SPA editor, where the AEM editor version, the authoring part also will be Angular and React as well. Okay. Now, if it is not Angular or not React, what it will be? The default is general. So the default is general. We have already created the default format. We will go and see that. Okay. Yes, I have done a MBN clean install and the build is success. It will take some time for the first time, because it will download all the jar dependencies from the Maven repository, and the build is success. Now, whenever you wanted to deploy this, then you have to add auto install package, and all those informations are already available in the README. So you can use any of these information to deploy your package to your local AEM instance. Okay. Now coming to the UI.frontend. In the UI.frontend, we have something called SRC, and it almost looks like an SPA based structure. Okay. In Angular or React also, we will have SRC, and inside that there will be a component, resources, static, kind of this way, but it is not actually SPA based nature. Okay, the current project is SPA, not SPA based nature. It is server side only. However, the difference is we will have a module where only UI specific information will be stored or coded. So if you see, if I open UI.frontend, we have a SRC main webpack. Inside that we have a folder called component, and for each of our UI.apps component, here CSS and JavaScript will be written. So all the CSS JavaScript will go to UI.frontend module, and whichever the HTML part will be still under UI apps. And there is a specific reason they have provided this way, and it's almost aligned with the nature of SPA based project as well. So only from concept perspective, it is kind of aligned more similar to SPA based nature of project. And the reason is, if for any kind of AEM project, we will require two kind of expertise. One is the backend, another is the UI or frontend. UI or frontend in the sense they should have the information or the expertise on the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But for the AEM backend side, they will need the expertise of Java, Apache, Sling, and OSGI framework and Sitely. Okay, these are the expertise they need from the AEM side. So the resources that they or the team might not have the expertise, all the team members might not have the expertise in both the area. So there might be a UI team, there will be AEM team. So AEM team will be responsible for all this particular structure except the UI.frontend, whereas the UI team or the particularly the front end team, they will be responsible only to handle the UI.frontend. So and how it is going to work. So UI team always work on here only in this particular module, and they can run this module as if I open in terminal, they can just run npm I to install all the dependencies of the UI. So it will work almost like a standard UI based project. Okay, I think all of the module already installed because of the ambient clean install. If not, UI team can use npm I for the first time. Then they can run npm start to run the this particular UI.frontend module as a UI server. So what does it mean? Anything that is written as part of this particular folder UI.frontend, that will come as a individual project that will launch, and that is only for the UI team, where UI team can UI team can edit or modify any of the CSS JavaScript they require. And now you might have a doubt, CSS and JavaScript is here, but where is the HTML? The HTML is actually at the static level. So if we go to the index.html, this is the HTML currently available. So UI team always has to copy the HTML of any of the component from the UI.app structure app folder. They can take from the UI.apps folder, or they can request to the AEM team to get the HTML of the AEM component, specific AEM component they are going to work. Or if they are working on any of the AEM core component, they can go to this website AEM core component.dev, and there are all the core component in are already listed. They can just go to any of the component like accordion and markup. For this particular UI, they can just copy this markup and put it into the static file anywhere they want it, and that particular information should appear here, right? If you see item 1, item 2, item 3, and if you see there are some mismatches to this UI and this way, that's because we just added the markup, means we just added the HTML, we have not added the CSS and JavaScript of the core component. The time we will add the CSS JavaScript, either UI team can add from here, or UI team can add from UI team can request to AEM team to add the core component dependency libraries into the dependencies client lib as well. But it is always recommended whenever you go for UI.frontend, everything should be handled by the UI team. They should override any of these component that is required for them. So we have added a accordion component here. So according to accordion component, they can go ahead here and add the required CSS JavaScript as per their requirement. Okay, that's where UI team can work independently only this module. Once they commit and push the changes, AEM team do not need to do anything in the UI.frontend. They just need to run the ambient clean install at the outside at the AEM guides weekend folder, basically the project folder level. They just run the ambient clean install, automatically everything should come up. All the UI front-end code should be coming up. That will be served from your AEM project or from the project website. Okay, now when UI team is working on this particular structure, we must be thinking this is kind of a client side project, and why it is not SPA in nature. When I'm speaking SPA, why it is not single page application in nature like React or Angular. The difference is, if UI team is coding any of the CSS or JavaScript here, those all CSS JavaScript will be compiled into one CSS file and one JavaScript file. All CSS will be compiled to one CSS file, all JavaScript will be compiled to one JavaScript file. They will be copied to, under UI.apps, we have something called client leave site. So they will be copied to client leave site and it will be served from client leave site. And all that logic is already written in the UI.frontend. If you see the client leave.config, all these logic are already written here. You can customize it if you want it, but by default, the behavior is, if UI team has written anything under the UI.frontend, during ambient clean install, or basically when AEM team is going to run the whole project, this whole UI front-end module code will be compiled and put it into client live site, where client live site will be served from AEM project as a standard AEM project. Okay, this is the behavior, and this means our pages, our standard AEM pages will be still server side rendered. However, the CSS JavaScript will be in only in one file. It won't, we won't have multiple client live file, rather than we will have only one client live file. Okay, it is more like aligned to the SPA based application structure, but the behavior and nature of the project is not related to SPA, not similar to SPA. Remember, only the whatever earlier also we used to write CSS and JavaScript, we used to something, a concept called embed client live and dependency client live. Now that everything will be part of UI.frontend. We don't need to take care of that embed and dependency, where UI team can work independently and AEM team do not need to worry about the style related information as well. They just need to be aware about the HTML communication, where whatever the HTML has been put into the component folder, here still the HTML will be rendered. One of the example I can open. So in the hello world HTML, if I am the AEM person, I am going to copy this. Either I have to provide this particular path to the UI team, they can work on this particular HTML structure, or I'm going to give them this is the HTML structure and work on the CSS or JavaScript. They can do that way, or even they can just go to the AEM website, copy the structure of from the inspect element. They can put that inspect element structure into their static here as part of the. So if I open here, right, in the static index.html, and they can work on top of that also. It's just how we can communicate this HTML structure. That is the only part we have to take care of. Rest everything will be completely independent between AEM and UI team. And if you see, this is the HTML structure, and these CSS classes has to be taken care as part of the component. Hello world, Control F. These are the classes, CSS classes. Okay, similarly. Now, so this is the standard architecture recommended by Adobe. For standard AEM architecture, they are recommending you always have a UI.frontend, so that your code will be more independent, and code is kind of not, there will be very less dependency, and execution wise also it will be more prominent and more modular, portable. Okay, that's the reason they have provided. This is more like team perspective, execution perspective, it is very good. And from optimization perspective, you will see the optimization near to the SPA nature, not more than that, or even not less than that. There is some level of optimization is taken care by server rendered pages, but more or like almost near to the SPA nature. Okay, whatever the optimization you would have got into a React based project or Angular project, just more than, little more than that, because it will be a still server side rendering page. So for that you will get little more than that optimization. from page optimization perspective. When I'm speaking page optimization, I'm speaking about page speed index. So there is a concept called web.dev lighthouse report. As part of that I'm speaking, and that's where the page optimization will be taken care. Now here there is a couple of things for the that I wanted to discuss. That is, remember, from whatever the code will be in the UI.frontend, it will be copied to client lib side. So any code you are adding in the client lib side might not be used, or you may have to configure that to be used or reused, because all the code will be taken from UI.frontend, put it into client lib side, and this will be a single client lib to serve your web page. Okay. So this is the standard architecture. Now we will go to the next part, that is, if we'll come back to the front end model value. We discuss about how to if we are putting Angular or React, what will be the nature, and we discuss about if we are not putting, or if we are putting the default value, that is the general, what will be the nature. Now there is the last one, is none. We still have a none feature provided by Adobe. The reason is there are some certain scenario where you will require the none feature, or you will feel none feature is kind of the best requirement at that point. We'll discuss that as well. I'll try to complete in this video. If not, we'll do a detailed end-to-end video on the none section as well. So for by default, Adobe is recommending general. We have taken Angular, React, or decoupled. We will go for SPA nature. And when we will go for none, that means whenever we are providing the none attribute value, then our project will be created with no UI.frontend. That means this UI.frontend module will not be there if the frontend module value is none. So make sure, if you do not need UI.frontend, you have to provide the frontend module value equal to none. And why is that? In that case, our UI.apps client lib site will be as per our classic structure, and we can add our client lib into the client lib site. Even we can make changes to the dependency section and even embed section. That's where we can take advantage of the most level of optimization, and at the CSS and JavaScript level. I'll tell the difference. What is the difference between none and general, and what is the advantage in none if we don't go for the general? Uh, so the front end value as a general, or UI front end module structure. So if you see, there is one, as part of my discussion, I spoke one thing that if any code that is part of UI frontend, that will be compiled into one client lib file, and that will be served from the AEM project. That means if there is a page, home page, we have created certain code for, or there is only 5 component that is being used for home page, and only those 5 component client lib should be used in home page. That cannot be achieved using UI.frontend. So UI.frontend is more like any code, any CSS JavaScript code that is written as part of the project, that will be there in home page, any page that you load as part of your AEM project. Okay. And how we can control it? You can still control in the UI frontend module by customizing the client lib, this client lib configuration. But instead of modifying that, we can go for the classic structure where you have to provide UI.frontend module, sorry, frontend module value as none, where UI.frontend won't appear at all, and we can work with the classic structure of the AEM, where we can create our own client lib, multiple client lib at the component level wherever we want it, and that client lib can be embedded to the client lib side. That we can provide, and we can create page specific client lib, and we can include those page specific client lib into the template level for each page, whichever page requires, for most optimization way, where only required CSS and JavaScript will be loaded into that particular page. And that is recommended only for those scenario where, if your client requires the AEM project, or your requirement, your client's requirement will have, where you will create a page which is UI heavy, and there is every page will have different of CSS and JavaScript. None of the pages will have reusability of the CSS or JavaScript. In those case only you should go for front end module equal to none, where you can independently use specific client lib. You will have more granular control of the client lib site. I think this is it. This is related to the none value. I won't go much details. uh, I wanted to discuss this much only today. So yeah, so we discussed today, in overall, we discussed today how to create a AEM project, how to use the properties, how to pass the property information in the during the Maven project creation, and how to choose one of the values that is required as per our project requirement, like AEM version and front end module. Then we focused on the front end module and its values, how the values actually differs from one from another, and when to use which one, when to use which values to create our project, so that we can take most advantage of our AEM project. Okay. Just as a conclusion, when we use a general, we will have a UI.frontend module with a standard architecture, standard UI architecture, where UI team can work on the UI.frontend module only specifically, and AEM team can focus overly the AEM project without UI.frontend. And when we do not want to have this general structure, we can go for SPA based. We can give one of these value if our team has more expertise towards Angular or React, or our key requirement from client side is the project need to be built on Angular or React. Then we can provide front end module value as Angular or React or decoupled. Then the next part is when we should not be requiring either SPA nature or the UI independent structure, more granular control to the client lib, then we can go for none value, where the UI.frontend module will not be created at all. There won't be any SPA based structure. There won't be any portability between AEM and UI team for that. This means UI team cannot build a module just specific to UI element. They cannot do it. So when we are going for none, whenever we wanted for more granular control of the client lib, most level of page level of optimization, then we should go for none option. Remember, any of this value you take, if you are getting UI.frontend, still you can use client lib structure. You can still add more client lib on top of it. You can mix and match, provided that you have to load other client lib, the customized client lib independently rather than client lib site. So client lib site will be tied to the UI.frontend, and rest all other client lib you have to control independently. You can still do that even though we create the UI.frontend module. I'll end this video here. In case you need more information or any clarification on any of the part I have explained, comment below. I'll make more detailed video on this. Okay. Thank you.